Hey, we are so happy.
This drink self is very interesting. I've just drank some of it and I feel the energy. It's called Black Panther drink by Dr. Kang. That is very interesting. So, if you happen to see this drink anywhere, it's energy drink. Energy. I'm just talking and say, now I feel energized. No, but I've read the content and I can see there's moringa there. There's nice this thing, the ingredient. It's good for the stomach. So the purpose of God was for man to be like him. Now look at us now. We are so diminished, to the extent that we don't even have the power. Ordinary animals, they have power over us. We are supposed to be all these lions and tigers and crocodile and snake or whatever, that we are supposed to have dominion over them. But we don't have the dominion over them. Why? Because of the sin that we have seen, because of the disobedience. Of course, God has blessed man also with a lot of talent. That is why through this technological advancement, we have many things. We build houses, we have machines and stuff that we can use, of course, to kill. But you dare not face a lion without having a gun. Even if you have a sword, let's forget. Even if you have a gun, even if you have a gun and they throw you into the pit of lion, you see lion. When you cock that gun, if you're not careful, that gun will remove from your hand. So, and that is because of the fear. That is because of the fear. And that is why he said that he has not, you see, everything is by the Spirit. He said, I have not given you the spirit of fear, but he has given the spirit of love, power, and sound mind. But where are those things? Those are the things that we have lost. Those are the things that we choose to lack. Now, any small thing, fear allow. Fear makes us to lose so many things, and that is why today there are depressions, there are people committing suicide, people doing whatever they like, allowing the negative spirit to control their lives, and that is what is going on. So when we talk of the spirit, we talk of the Spirit of God, but the Spirit of God, it is of a positive action, a spiritual santo. In Nigeria, from our own tribe, Yoruba, they call it emimimo. Every other language adds name for the spirit.
Yeah.
They have to have the name of spirit in any other languages or dialects, because that is the language. So it is the Spirit of God. But then the question is, what is the source of your own spirit? There is spirit from the devil's side. So you have to know what spirit you are talking about. If you allow the spirit that is against the will of God, then that is not the Spirit of God. For you to have the Spirit of God is for you to be on the positive side, not on the negative side of life. That's why I told you, when we talk about spirit, then we have to go, okay, what spirit are we talking about? That is why I told you that there is a particular verse in the New Testament, so simple, but if you think about it, that is what it's talking about. It says, for God so loved the world. It didn't say for God so loved Africa, or Europe, or America, or Asia, or whatever, or what religion, or what. It said, for God so loved the world. That whosoever comes from, whether you are white, black, Hispanic, whatsoever, whosoever believe in him, should not perish but have everlasting life. Once you believe in the Son of God, regardless from wherever you come from, regardless of your ancestors, what your ancestors you worship. I have repeated this before, and I will repeat again. regardless of tradition, regardless of whatsoever. He says, for God so loved the world. Now, that loved the world, that means there was a world, right? If say for God so loved the world, that means there was a world. That means there was something going on in that world, right?
Yeah.
But then, what was being done in that world did not please God. Because if it pleased him, or if it pleases him, he wouldn't have come up with the idea of that sentence. But because he wasn't satisfied with what was happening, he created them for them to worship him. But then he sees the people he has created, he sees people that he has created doing something else. He sees people that he has created worshiping something else. Worshiping whatever that he has not given them instruction to worship. For example, idol worshiping, creating, worshiping of tree, of animals, or whatsoever. They worship because they believe there is something. There has to be something superior that they need to worship. And then when God created them, that's the reason why he created them, to worship him. You see, may we not become a foolish people. Because you cannot, a leaf or a tree cannot grow from the ground and then you are worshiping it. It is not. All of these things have been made for our own, for us to consume. That is why the vegetables that we eat today, it is from the ground. Many things that we eat comes from the ground. But the problem still comes back to the spirit. What makes man to begin to degrade themselves, to be looking at what cannot hear, nor what cannot see, nor what cannot breathe, or what cannot, that you are worshiping, when it's, have you noticed that God has sent bread from heaven during those times in the olden days, manna from heaven. Yeah. So apart from human beings seeing something growing from the ground, manna has also come from heaven above. Like when rain falls, manna has fallen like that before, and man started to eat. All those ones are food. But when it comes to worshiping, before Christ, God has selected leaders among men. God speaks to men. And that is why during the time of Moses, of Isaac, of all these people, God speaks to them so that they can tell the people the mind of God, so that they can tell the people messages from God. And so when they tell men, hey, this is God, this is what God says. But men, we are always rebellion of what God tells us. We rebel against his word.
Why?
And that is because man wants to do their own thing. Man allow themselves to be pushed by their own minds. Of course, there is no other minds when you allow the evil spirit, the demonic, because that is what is in this world. And since we lost that power, sin, the sinful nature has come into a man. And that is why today we are dying. The purpose of God was not for us to die. The purpose of God was for us to live forever. But because of sinful nature, Now, sin comes from the evil part. Sin comes from anything that is contrary to the will of God. So when we talk about food, food has nothing to do with it. The God of this world has blinded the eyes of man. And then you see man doing different kinds of things that is not meaningful. Have you ever imagined when it rains? Have you ever imagined the sun that comes out every time of the sun season? Have you ever imagined the moon that shows up every time of the moon? Have you ever imagined the water that we drink? Where it comes from? Have you ever imagined that you sleep and you wake up the next day? Have you ever imagined that when you sleep you dream and then you wake up? You can still remember part of that dream, but then you are not able to. But what makes me to dream? Have you ever imagined all these things are the things that we see that we are grateful to God because the food that we eat. If you go to Walmart, you go to the stores, every time we buy food every time, but yet food are being brought to these stores. Man lack no food. You can wake up at any time, go to the store. So at times I ask myself, has there been any way that one day the forest or the bush don't grow anything? At least even when we talk about scarcity, there will still be food. It's just that it is not as plenteous as So there are things that God has given man. Remember, before he says let us make man in our image, remember he has created some things before man. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
He has created something. So those things are for us. And of course, we need to be grateful when we see a tree growing up. When you put a seed in the ground, and then in some little days, you see a flower coming up from that thing, and then it's growing. That's enough to say, wow, God is wonderful. We're not the part of God. So those ones are things that are normal, are things that God has made. What you're not understanding is this. God has given a man choice. The reason why Christ came was to revive us from all these things, from all the things of iniquities, because God is with you. And as you go out today, remember to talk to someone about Jesus Christ. God bless you, and I will see you soon.